Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotra Shati His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotra Shati Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, good morning everybody. Mukunda Charan Prabhu asked me to speak today, so I'll try to, by your blessings, say a few things. We're reading from 7th Canto, The Science of God, chapter number 2, entitled Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons. And we'll chant the Sanskrit. Oh yes, Canto 7, Canto 7, chapter 2, text 61. Shri Narada Uvacha Iti Daitya Pater Vakyam Ditir Akarnya Sasnusha Putra Shokam Kshanat Tyaktva Tatve Chitam Adharayet. Shri Narada Uvacha Iti Daitya Pater Vakyam Ditirakarnya Sasnusha Putra Shokam Kshanat Tyaktva Tatvichitam Adharayet. Shri Narada Uvacha Iti Daitya Pater Vakyam Ditirakarnya Sasnusha Putra Shokam Kshanat Tyaktva Tatvechitam Adharayat. Shri Narada Uvacha Iti Daitya Pater Vakyam Ditirakarnya Sasnusha Putra Shokam Kshanat Tyaktva Tatvechitam Adharayat. Please chant. Pater Vakyam Tirvakarnya Sasnusha Putra Shokam Kshanat Tyaktva. Shri Narada Uvacha iti datya patervakyam Tamadharayat. Shri Narada Uvacha iti datya patervakyam Tirakarni sasnusha putra shokam kshanat tyaktva Anyone else?
Shri Narada Uvacha iti daitya patervakyam
Ditirakarni sasnusha putra shokam kshanat tyaktva tadvechitam adharayat. Anyone on Zoom? Okay, I'll read the synonyms. Shri Narada Uvacha. Shri Narada Muni said, Iti, thus, Daitya Patehe, of the king of the demons, Vakyam, the speech, Diti, the mother of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, Akarnya, hearing, Sasnusha, with the wife of Hiranyaksha, Putra Shokam, the great bereavement for her son Hiranyaksha, Kshanat, immediately, Tyaktva, given up, Tattve, in the real philosophy of life, Chitam, heart, Adharayat, engaged. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shri Narada Muni continued, Diti, the mother of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, heard the instructions of Hiranyakashipu along with her daughter-in-law, Vrishabhanu, Hiranyaksha's wife. She then forgot her grief over her son's death and thus engaged her mind and attention in understanding the real philosophy of life. And the purport. When a relative dies, one certainly becomes very much interested in philosophy. But when the funeral ceremony is over, one again becomes attentive to materialism. Even daityas, who are materialistic persons, sometimes think of philosophy when some relative meets death. The technical term of this attitude of the materialistic person is smashana vairagya, or detachment in the cemetery or place of cremation. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 4 classes of men receive an understanding of spiritual life and God. Artha, the distressed, Jignasu, the inquisitive, Artharthi, one who desires material gains, and Jnani, one who is searching for knowledge. Especially when one is very much distressed by material conditions, one becomes interested in God. Therefore, Kuntīdevī said in her prayers to Krishna that she preferred distress to a happy mood of life. In the material world, one who is happy forgets Krishna or God. But sometimes, if one is actually pious but in distress, he remembers Krishna. Queen Kuntīdevī therefore preferred distress because it is an opportunity for remembering Krishna. When Krishna was leaving Kuntīdevī for his own country, Kuntīdevī regretfully said that she was better off in distress because Krishna was always present, whereas now that the Pāṇḍavas were situated in their kingdom, Krishna was going away. For a devotee, distress is an opportunity to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 7th canto, 2nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakandvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhe Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we at the end, we finished the second chapter of this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's a very interesting part where Hiranyakashipu was speaking philosophy of Bhagavad Gita to his nephews to pacify them. And actually we see in Sanskrit, we see that this Narada Muni Uvacha, he is speaking. And we see that Maharaj Yudhishthira in the beginning, he inquired about how Hiranyakashipu was so envious of Prahlad Maharaj and why he was so eager to kill Lord Vishnu. That's why he appears again to speak. And in this chapter we had a discourse between Yamaraj. It's a historical story with his friends of King Suyagya, and Yamaraj was instructing them in lessons of self-realization and how it's completely useless to lament for a perishable body. And then Yamaraj gave an example of Kalinga bird and his relatives, his wife and children. And it's mentioning here that if you're lamenting for someone who passed away, then you can actually miss your own death. So what's the use of that? That is the lesson that we can learn from this chapter, the general one. So, and then Dravida Prabhu was nicely explaining about false pride and Hiranyakashipu's position, why he was conversed with the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, but wasn't himself executing it. He was not a devotee of Krishna, but he knew philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. He was a great scholar. And when his brother was killed, immediately what he wanted to do is kill Lord Vishnu, and he sent his demons to set fire to places where Brahmanas were performing sacrifices and studying the Vedas. So it's obvious, appears very obvious that he's not following the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. He's just using it to his own advantage. And people sometimes in life also might do that. They might be conversant with some philosophical understanding of Bhagavad Gita, but not in a realized form. And they might give an advice to a person, or they might even make a campaign to help people to make positive changes in life. But if it's not connected with Shastric understanding, if they themselves are not Krishna conscious, then there would be no actual practical change of this philosophy, of their philosophy. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yat yata charati shreshtas tat tatavata rojana, that whatever action a great man performs, the common man they choose to follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So everything, all the teachings that we're trying to impart onto others should be based on Shastra. That is the conclusion. And one time I remember meeting one person in Balboa Park. She was going through a life crisis, and she was asking her relatives, I need an advice. I'm struggling. I do not know how to solve the issues I'm going through. And she was asking her friends, her relatives, and specifically that day she was asking her dad, Dad, can you please give me an advice? And her dad was trying to tell her something, and I actually overheard the conversation. And so she was saying to him, no, Dad, I don't need this type of advice. I need a spiritual advice. Can you please give me a spiritual advice? And anyway, so she came over to my table, and she briefly explain about what she's going through in life, and she asked me if I can give her an advice. And I thought for a moment, maybe I can. So I said that one advice that I can give you is you should engage your senses in service to the master of the senses, Rishikena, Rishikesha. And like this, you can the result of that would be that your senses will be properly engaged, and you'll be getting purified. Because the senses, it's an active principle of life. We can stop them from working, from being engaged. And the best form of engagement for the senses is spiritual activities and chanting Hare Krishna mantra. So I gave her a pamphlet, and that was our interaction. And then Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's also a famous text, Kali Kalera Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtan, Krishna Shakti Vinana Het Tata Pravartana. That fundamental religious system in this age of Kali is the chanting of Hare Krishna. And unless one is empowered by Krishna, he cannot spread the Sankirtan movement. Now in the commentary here we see that it is mentioned that death or any major misery in life can cause interest in self-realization with people. Sometimes they might inquire about what's going to happen to us in the next life. And it's a moment where people feel a little desperate and they're ready for accepting a change. And similarly in Balbo Park I met a lady, she's from China, and she was telling me that her husband passed away about 2 years ago. And she was trying to travel to different places in America to get away from this pain that she's experiencing. And she was telling me, I'm suffering so much, I can't help myself, I'm suffering so much. She was telling me that, she told me that 3 or 4 times. And actually before that, she was with a group of people, and I met her friends, and I shared some books with her friends, and well, apparently they wanted her to come talk to me. And when she came over to me, the first question she asked me was that, do you have anything on happiness? And I said, oh my God, I've been waiting for this question all day. So I gave her some books, and we chanted together. But obviously she was very, very frustrated in life, and she was telling me that her husband, he was a big scientist, and he gave her a lot of money when he passed away. So now she's trying to use the money to support educational system in America. She's from China. She's trying to do that. And of course it's a nice thing. And in my mind I was thinking that maybe you should direct the money towards an ultimate goal of life and give it to Krishna. But I held my tongue because, obviously it's not exactly the most proper situation when we speak about, large sums of money. And I remember this incident reminded me of this pastime of His Grace Shyamasundar Prabhu when he was asked by Srila Prabhupada to speak with George Harrison and to ask him to invest and give money to help print the Krishna book. Yeah, to do it. Yeah, because we were looking for the whole sum of money. And it was very difficult because, before that, devotees and His Grace Shyamasundar Prabhu, they were never asking anything from George Harrison, and now they have to do it. And besides, at that moment, George Harrison, he gave money to devotees to support building an altar. He was giving money for the marble. And it was a difficult situation, and His Grace Shyamasundar Prabhu was very nervous of approaching. But it turned out very, very blissful. There was a thunderbolt, right, at the one storm. The lights were off, and then eventually George Harrison asked him, "So how much would you like?" Yeah, how can I refuse? Like that. So at this stage, we see in the purport also Bhagavad Gita mentioned that if we meet somebody, if we see that a person is pious, Sukritino, and if he's experienced distress in life, he might be able to express interest in God, approaching God. And there's a text, Chaturvidya bhajanti mam jana Sukritino arjuna atto jignasarartarthik jnanicha bratarshabha. It says, a best among Bharatas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me. the distress, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he was searching of knowledge of the Absolute. So these four kinds of people who approach Absolute if they performed pious activities in the past and now they are in distress. And do you guys want to tell me who is the best of those four? Who is the best of those four? Inquisitive, yeah. Because the inquisitive is when he's looking for the absolute truth, and when he finds it, he becomes very serious. But the other three kinds, the one who's in distress or the people who are desiring wealth, they actually they still have some material motivation in accepting this devotional service. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Jnani is the dearest, and the best example of the Jnani is Shukadeva Goswami. He was always present in wherever there was a discussion of the pastimes, of the form, name, of activities of Krishna. And even though he was a liberated personality, he was still attracted to those discussions. And also in this commentary we see Queen Kunti, she's mentioned here, and she's saying that she's the best example of those who is seeing Krishna in difficulties, seeing Krishna in difficulties. And in the commentary it says, in the material world, one who is happy, he forgets Krishna. But sometimes if one is actually pious, but in distress, he remembers him. So she offered beautiful prayers to Krishna right after he saved them from Brahmastra, when Ashwatthama released the Brahmastra to kill the Pāṇḍava family. And she was saying, you are the original personality and you are unaffected by the qualities of material world. You are invisible to all, just like an actor who is a player and cannot be recognized by anyone. She says, Vipada Shanta Tatshashvat. It says, I want calamities to come again and again and again. It helps me to remember you, to be dependent on you in these times. And also she said that you only approach by those who are exhausted materially. Akinchana Gocharam. And the impediments on this path are those, the impediments would be material opulences. She was saying, what's going to happen when you leave all these cities and villages? They won't give us any fruit, any herbs, and any grains and minerals that we see in abundance when you hear. And she was saying this very nice Sanskrit verse: Tvayaminanya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratimadvahatat gangiva gamadanvati. She was saying, oh Madhava, as Ganges torrents flow into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. Beautiful, beautiful prayers. Srila Prabhupada spoke on these prayers. He gave a lot of lectures. So for a devotee, distress is a great opportunity to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tatyenu kampam sishimakshimana banjana evatmakritam vipakam. It says in the 10th canto. Devotees, they earnestly wait for the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they're very patient and they are respectful. They're offering their respects with their words, their body, their heart. And I remember in the early days, Srila Prabhupada, I remember Srila Prabhupada was saying that we should take risk for Krishna. We should stick out our neck to spread Krishna consciousness. And then if we do that, Krishna will have to, you must help us personally. So, and devotees who closest to take the biggest risk for Krishna, they realize, they see that Krishna helps, he appears and he helps. Like for instance, in the beginning days, when they curved the first deities of Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, it's actually, it's very mystical that people in California were accepting that this is God, and they were surrendering their lives to Lord Jagannath. And also, there was an instance where devotees were struggling in 1967. They were struggling with rent and they were behind on like two months behind on rent. And at that time, devotees who lived at the temple, they were trying to help. They were working. Like for instance, Shyamasundar Prabhu, he was a carpenter, and other devotees were working, driving taxi and things like that. And then there was this magic moment when His Grace Shyamasundar Prabhu and his wife Kuntīdevī Dasi, they would come into the temple, and they saw early in the morning, and they saw $100 bills flying in the air. At that time when they needed money the most, and so they started, picking them. Like that. The $100 bill was flying in the air. Just outside? Just outside, yeah. Yeah.
The air is filled with $100.
Yeah, more details, please.
So they were going to the temple early in the morning, and at that time they needed money for rent, and all of a sudden they see money in the air. That's the whole incident, and they started getting money, picking it up, and I mean eventually they had enough to maintain the temple and pay for the rent. Those are the magic days of Srila Prabhupada, where people, they had complete faith and they were so surrendered to Krishna and to Srila Prabhupada. And in those days they were working very, very hard, very hard. So why don't we also feel the same way and start, working for Krishna very hard and take risks for Krishna? It could be very adventurous, give us a purpose in life, a big purpose. And one very helpful thing we can do for Srila Prabhupada, especially in the upcoming December marathon, is distribute his books. Srila Prabhupada often said that this book distribution is printing and distributing books is most important activity within our Krishna consciousness, and there's no doubt about it. All the devotees that are made, they come from book distribution for the most part. And I remember His Holiness Vishnu Jan Swami, he was chanting and playing mridanga for like 8 or 10 hours, inside and outside. And he was saying that we're playing so much that because we don't want to give Maya a chance. Like that. And from book distribution we have so many realizations in such an amazing service, so many stories, so many great people that we meet. Yesterday I met a famous rapper. That before I joined, I actually was listening to him. I probably shouldn't say his name, but I can. I can say after class. And I also met Dharmasiddha's daughter yesterday. She was with her family going to the zoo. We were at the zoo with Bhakti Chat. It was a very nice day. So, and I remember His Grace Jamunapati Prabhu was recently, when he was doing an offering for Srila Prabhupada, he was saying that book distribution was so sweet back in the days. But nowadays, it's also so sweet. You meet so many genuine and kind-hearted people who are very much ready for accepting, taking up Krishna consciousness. Yesterday, me and Bhakti Chat Prabhu were at the zoo, and it was such an ecstatic experience. We were playing Srila Prabhupada's tune, melody, and people were dancing, coming over to us, and just based on them hearing Srila Prabhupada, they would come and be inquisitive. Kind of see what kind of books we have there, and yeah, that beautiful melody. It's very powerful. And we met at the zoo. There's a lot of families. It's kind of a little difficult to stop them. There's a good flow of people, but they're busy with their families, so it's a bit difficult. But I remember meeting this one lady. Her name is Sharon, and she said, "I don't know what I am, what I'm doing with my life, what I need, what I want, but I'm going to give this book a try," she said. And another nice lady, her name is Gabriela. She was from Mexico City, but she lives here now in Chula Vista. So she had a bad connection on her phone. But she wanted to get the book so much, she actually stepped outside and she was looking through her phone, finding internet connection, and eventually she did to make a donation. And she made a donation, and I mentioned that we have a gathering every Friday in Chula Vista, and I said that we do kirtan, you know. And she said, "You do kirtan? I love kirtan. I want to come. I want to come." And looks like she might come this week. And Bhakti Chat is just, I admire his quality of being so fearless. He's so fearless, you know, walking and approaching people. It's super. It's really amazing. Yeah. He's not concerned at all about what people would think. He just want to give them these books, especially Bhagavad Gita. It's amazing. Completely surrendered. And I had my friends visiting from Chicago. His Grace Yogananda Prabhu, he's my godbrother, and also his wife. And we were at Bobo Park. I met this one Spanish-speaking lady. I think she was also from Mexico. She said, "I'm going through a lot in life. I'm going through a lot of changes. And she said, I want my life to change. And I understand that the only way to change my life, if I practice something spiritual. There's nothing else that can help me. So thank you so much for stopping," she said. And I was shown in this verse in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, "Yonta sukon tararamas tatantar jyotirevaya," that the one whose happiness is within, who rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, he is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. And I was trying to explain to her that if we don't relish happiness within, then it would be very difficult to give up our sinful tendencies, and we'll continue just suffering, because sinful tendencies, sinful activities means, you know, undoubted suffering. And so the key to being free from suffering is acting in knowledge of the Supreme Lord, being Krishna conscious. And she was very touched by the conversation. As I told her, you're such a sincere and genuine soul. It's a pleasure to meet people like you. And Yogananda's wife, she saw that we are having such an engaging conversation, and I had a garland with me, so she decided to put a garland on her neck. And that lady, she was so grateful. She started crying. She was like, "Thank you so much. What just happened? I don't know what just happened, but I'm so grateful that you've been so kind to me." And then she said, Yogananda's wife, she told me, her name is Antonina, she told me that, I asked her, "Why did you decide to give her a garland?" And she said, "Well, you know, she was so enthralled, she was you know, so absorbed, she was getting so much mercy at that moment, so I decided to give her a garland to top it off, you know." And then she said, "Of course, you can't do that. You're a brahmachari. You stay there." And she decided to give it like that. And then, you know, after distributing books for a while, you have that realization that you're not actually distributing books at all. It's not you. You're just a messenger hiding behind these powerful books, and all you're trying to do is just not to scare people away, like that. You just offer these books, and you realize that I'm not the distributor. I just have a little desire to distribute these books, and the rest is Krishna's magic. We all experience, devotees who go on book distribution, they experience it. It's really amazing. And sometimes we might have tough days on Sankirtan, where people might give us a lot of rejections, or we might be lacking in our strength, enthusiasm, or sometimes we're just failing to accept our dependence on Guru and Krishna, being forgetful, being spaced out, and sometimes the mind is just freaking out like anything. So the reason for that, it's because we're still not pure. Sometimes often we still make offenses to the holy name, to devotees, to seva. Sometimes we just need some extra rest. So what I've noticed that if we have a desire to give these books to people, if we have a really strong desire to give these books to people and to really satisfy Krishna, you know, being in a very prayerful mood, And our desire to satisfy Krishna and share this literature, this Krishna conscious literature, is stronger than people's desire to engage in sensual, illicit sensual activities. And Krishna manifests, and Krishna gives the intelligence how to approach, what to say, and how to speak with people. And of course, we don't have to do it in such a sophisticated manner. We don't have to all be big scholars. We can just share whatever we've learned, whatever we understand. And if our desire is in the right place, then if we just want to do it sincerely, if we determine to do it, we have a satmika buddhira keha kurunandana. Krishna says in the Gita that if we're resolute in purpose, if our goal is Krishna, then this magic will happen. Krishna will give the intelligence. And this is exactly what we've seen in this verse, that the faith, strong faith in Krishna, unflinching faith, unflinching trust in Krishna, in his sublime activities. This is very important. And like that, we get that, we receive that by being connected with the Guru Parampara, with the spiritual master. This knowledge is not an ordinary knowledge. It's something that is deducting, coming down through the lineage of authority, and it's something that is not dependent on anything. The absolute truth is not dependent on anything, on our understanding. It's not dependent on any external circumstances. So we just have to be very submissive in order to be able to rightly understand and rightly receive that knowledge. Because if we're not submissive, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not, he reserves the right of not revealing himself to us. So book distribution is a very wonderful service. It helps you to understand where you are in Krishna consciousness and how much you absorb in Krishna, and most importantly, how much we are attracted to Krishna. We just need to endeavor with an interest to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Guru, and Srila Prabhupada, our Guru and Srila Prabhupada. And then the difficulties, we'll be able to turn them into opportunities to please Krishna, like that. And everything that is related to being successful in Krishna's services in book distribution, it's only a mercy of a Guru Parampara. It's a mercy of the devotees. It's a mercy of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. It's a mercy of prasadam, and so on and on. It's of course there's our endeavor. It's important, but ultimately we are so dependent on that mercy. So I guess I'll stop here and see if we have any questions, comments.
I have 2 comments. First of all, there's another rent-paying miracle story. This occurred in Philadelphia. Rubinder Swarup tells the story. Like, as in, I think the one you were talking about was in
San
LA.
Francisco.
It was in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the one where the $100 bills are flowing. But there's another one that's pertinent to your class about book distribution, and that is the LA temple needed support. So Prabhupada encouraged the brahmacharis, the devotees, to get jobs. Because he had the model of Jayananda in San Francisco, who was a full-time taxi driver to support the temple, So they did. And Tamal Krishna was telling this story. I'm listening to these, Siddhanta's interviews, online. They're incredible. And Tamal has 4 different parts. He's so much. So he's telling how, I was working for Kodak, he was doing some menial task, and there was another devotee there who had a slightly higher status job, but it was he said it's unbearable. I don't know, they lasted a week or whatever, So they suggested to Prabhupada that we just want to go out on Harinam and see if we can sell some BTGs, So Prabhupada approved, and they all went out on Harinam. And the first day they came back with, I think, $4, which was a lot more in those days, but still wasn't enough to pay the rent. But it was something. And so as they went day after day, they started collecting more, and it was actually feasible. They came back with $40 one day, and if you do that for a bunch of days, you can easily pay the rent back then, you know. So that was a revelation, that they could support the temple through book distribution, and many temples to this day are being supported. But the miraculous rent paying, so Rabindra Swarup tells, he may have heard about the story in San Francisco that happened, you know, to inspire. Let's just go on Harinam. We just go on Harinam and you know, leave it up to Krishna. So they're downtown in Philadelphia, chanting like anything. And Rabindra Swarup sees a very tall man on the other side of the street, who's all dressed in white, I think. You know, he's an unusual aspect, you know. And he crosses the street and he walks past the party. And as he walks past Rabindra, he gives him an envelope and keeps walking.
Oh, yeah.
You heard this one?
Yeah, I did.
And it was just the right amount of money for the rent, you know. It was and Rabindra said, he's some demigod or some representative of Krishna. So those things, all kinds of stuff like that was happening in the early days. And it's still happening. These book distribution miracles are going on all the time.
Magic of Krishna.
But I would encourage you, unless you're already doing it, because some of these the people that come to my class, you know, they're first timers. They got a book, and somehow they found out about the class, you know, and they keep coming back. They get something out of it. Of course, you want to invite them to the lounge, but also let them know, because especially if they're interested in Bhagavad Gita, if they show that, you know, that we have regular classes. And it could also have the YouTube, you know, if they're out of town or whatever. You know.
Yeah, and that's actually Bhakti Matthew we were mentioning in some time ago in classes. He got 6 Bhagavad Gitas from me the other day, and he met His Grace Yamunapati Prabhu, and turned out he's his friend from the past. They were working together, business to business. You know, he has a plumbing company, and they were. And His Grace Yamunapati, I think he used to work for 24 Hour Fitness, and so they would come and you know, work together, and so turned out that they knew each other for more than 10 years. and then I met him, Gautam Prabhu met him, gave him some more literature. Then Yamunapati Prabhu also met him, and then last week he came to class. He came to Bhagavad Gita class for the first time. He was, I don't know if you remember, he was sitting here in the chair, and I gave him the beads, and we were chanting before the class. We chanted the whole round of Mahamantra. That was amazing. Yeah, but he told me that he has some sort of fear of being in public for too long. He told me that he likes, even when he goes shopping, he goes at the very 10 minutes before the store closes, so he doesn't have to see so many people. Yeah, like that. And also in the early days when I was just remembering that when Srila Prabhupada stopped typing, he was using the dictaphone, and devotees they didn't really know how to type fast. Miraculously, someone who was studying at that moment, right, a student, and he came and stayed for some time, and then he left. But in that period of time when he was doing the service, he did so much to help, so helpful, like that. So yeah, Krishna's magic. It's beautiful and conceivable. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Joseph.
Morning. You mentioned the 4 different types of people in distress, and then the other 3. Can you be in all 4 of those conditions at one time? Because it's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. I mean, I've been in distress most of my life, but now I'm confused.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned I can use my senses, and I've been told the less I use them, but I can use them in the service. So chanting and hearing you all chant from next door, and it goes on and on. But yeah, so I don't know what my question was. I think it had just something to do with.
Can't be all 4 at the same time.
Can't be. You don't want to be. I mean, it's okay, but. Anyway.
Well, yeah, it can be, and in many examples, it is that we might be searching after the absolute, but at the same time we might be very poor and we're looking to better our situation financially, for instance. It's just like with the modes of nature. Everything is mixed, affecting us differently like that. Sometimes goodness, sometimes passion. Similarly, here we also can see that when we are pious and in distress, we might be interested in the knowledge of the absolute. If we inquisitive or desiring wealth, it could be mixed also. That's my understanding. Distressed. There's four kinds of people. The one who's in distress, excuse me. The one who's looking for wealth, inquisitive, and the one who is in search of the absolute truth. Those four kinds.
They're all considered pious.
Yeah, the Sukritina pious. Yeah. Well, if you are associating with devotees and if you have inclination, attraction for any devotional service, then definitely you're very pious and you do have these credits like that. Yeah.
Prabhu.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Comment on those four types. So you have Arto, which is probably the biggest group. You know, those who are distressed, take shelter of God, pray to God, please relieve it. And the Artarti, Prabhupada generally describes as poverty-stricken. But when you think about it, that's pretty much Arto. In other words, that's someone in distress.
That's true.
But there's also another category of those who are, and Artarti includes someone like Dhruva. Dhruva was not poverty-stricken. He was after wealth, basically the kingdom greater than his father's. It may have been a childish thought, but that was his motive of going it. And so you have all these people who are trying to become millionaires and billionaires. Now, most of them don't chant Hare Krishna and come to the temple, you know. But in a certain culture, they might feel, well, this might be something I can try. I'll approach Krishna for that, you know. Mm-hmm. And the idea is they'll be very sincere because they're praying, you know, and they'll become purified. By chanting, you become purified of that desire, like Dhruva. Mm-hmm. So that don't forget those amongst the Artartis. It's not just people who are poverty-stricken, which is more or less Arto, but it's also those who are, traditionally in the Vedic culture, you know, you're worshiping demigods for that reason. Right? In order to get rich and get promotion to heaven, you know, that's all artarti. But some may also approach Krishna, you know.
Well, what would be an example of someone in distress from Srimad Bhagavatam? Like Gajendra?
Yeah, Gajendra is a good one. And Kunti, you mentioned Kunti, yeah, you know. Yeah. I mean, you know, because she's much more intimate servant, but they're calling out in great distress whenever there was, you know, trouble, and she felt Krishna's presence.
Yeah. Right.
Thanks, Prabhu. Yeah, same topic. I was wondering about, well, because since you had mentioned in the beginning of the class about Queen Kunti making that prayer that will let those distresses come in again and again, because that, you know, helps us to remember you and to pray to you sincerely. And then now we're also discussing this verse of the four types of people that approach Krishna, and the best type of person that approaches Krishna is the Jnani, one who is searching in knowledge after the absolute, not the distressed. But we were just talking about how the distress is so helpful in approaching Krishna. Yeah, and Prabhu made a good point too of how it's kind of like it can all be mixed, sort of like I could be in distress and needing a little money and, you know, chanting Krishna's name with all of those desires. But Krishna seems to be making a clear distinction for our benefit of there is one particular way which is most pleasing to him, to approach him in that way. Yet we see the pure devotee, Queen Kunti, who's taking advantage of that distress, and we're also taught to follow that example in that terms of, you know, respond to distress by praying to Krishna, and that's pleasing. But it's even more pleasing to pray to Krishna, not in terms of responding from distress, but in terms of searching for knowledge of the Absolute. So what would you say about, like, one who finds themselves approaching Krishna in a less than ideal way? Just be patient and continue the process, and the purification will bring you to a more refined state of bhakti? Or do you consciously kind of shift your awareness of your need from money and, you know, material well-being, and you shift that, oh, well, actually I have some desire to know the truth, and you shift your consciousness towards that. So what's the recommended for somebody who finds himself in that position?
It's just interesting question. Thank you. Well, I'll just comment this. I'll say that, of course, we those four kinds of people, they're not exactly, you know, pure devotees of Krishna, like Queen Kunti. She's in a different realm. She's a pure surrendered devotee of Krishna. So, well, my understanding is that those four kinds of people, they're able to approach Krishna, and then eventually, if they continuously engaged in devotional activities, then they get purified like that. And it's much easier for someone who is already searching up the absolute truth, if he has that desire, to be engaged in that purificatory processes or devotional activities very, very seriously. Because people who are just looking for instance, for artha, they might get it and that's it. But if you're looking for the absolute truth, if you really come in contact with it, then you just grasp it, and you don't want to lose it. And then comes the whole science of bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, which helps you to develop a desire to really please Krishna and give up all other motives in your devotional service. Because the actual purpose of bhakti is that it gives us a change of heart, and we become free from this desire for material, you know, bhoga, how does it go? Bhoga Ishvara Prashakta, no? Like that, for material opulences and sense gratification. That's my limited understanding. Hare Krishna. Would you like to say something, Judapala? Okay. Okay, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.